North America isn't just home to big ranches. It's home to some of the largest cattle operations on the planet. From Canadian ranges covering 500,000 acres, to Hawaiian ranches that once ran 35,000 head, to Florida cow-calf operations producing over 40,000 calves each year, and finally Mexico's Lucero complex with a staggering 250,000 head capacity, these ranches operate on a scale few people ever imagine. In this documentary, we break down the top cattle ranches by herd size, their history, their land, and the modern systems that allow them to manage tens and even hundreds of thousands of animals. Let's explore the giants of North American cattle production. We begin in West Texas at the legendary Four Sixes Ranch. This sprawling ranch complex, with its main headquarters near Guthrie and additional divisions such as Dixon Creek, covers more than 260,000 acres of classic West Texas country. It maintains a breeding herd of roughly 7,000 high-quality Angus cows, making it one of the largest cow-calf ranches in the United States. There's a famous story that ranch founder Captain Samuel Burke Burnett won the land, or at least the right to the Four Sixes brand, in a poker game with Four Sixes. In reality, he bought 100 head of cattle already carrying the Four Sixes brand in 1870 and acquired the brand along with them. He liked the mark because it was difficult for rustlers to alter. Over the following decades, Burnett steadily expanded his holdings, and by the time he died in 1922, the Four Sixes had become a powerful ranching empire. The Burnett family continued that legacy into the 20th century, and the Four Sixes Ranch gained just as much fame for its quarter horses as for its cattle. Horses from the Sixes, used both as working mounts and sold to outside buyers, have piled up awards in ranch work, rodeo, and racing. The ranch's breeding program is widely regarded as one of the most respected in the industry. A major change came in early 2022 when the ranch was sold by the Burnett heirs to a group of buyers led by Western wear businessman and Yellowstone creator Taylor Sheridan. That sale ensured the Four Sixes story remains front and center in modern Western culture. On the operations side, the ranch runs like a finely tuned machine. As a cow-calf outfit, its core mission is to produce top-tier calves, mostly Black Angus, that can bring premium prices. To do that, the Sixes invests heavily in genetics and herd health. It maintains on-site lab and veterinary facilities and applies strict selection and culling to keep improving the breeding herd. Technology and tradition work hand in hand here. Cowboys ride out from multiple camps, rotating cattle through carefully managed pastures across mesquite and juniper-covered rangeland. Electronic ID tags and detailed record-keeping software track each animal's performance, and drones are even used to inspect remote water troughs. But despite all the modern tools, daily life is still old school. Long days in the saddle, gathering cattle, branding, weaning, and shipping. Beyond cattle and horses, the Four Sixes also participates in the energy economy, with oil and gas activity and some wind power installations on its land. Still, the true heartbeat of the ranch is the combination of well-bred cattle, world-class horses, and a deeply rooted cowboy culture. The 6666 remains a pure example of how tradition and innovation can live side by side in modern ranching. From Texas, we head to northern Arizona, where Babbitt Ranches operates across about 700,000 acres of high desert and prairie north of Flagstaff. Here, roughly 8,000 Hereford Cross mother cows roam a landscape defined by open skies, volcanic rocks, and hardy grasses. While its herd is smaller than some of the other ranches on this list, Babbitt Ranches earns a place because of both its scale and its historical importance in the American Southwest. The story started in 1886, when 5 Babbitt brothers left Ohio and invested in cattle ranching in what was then Arizona Territory. Over time, they secured a patchwork of land and grazing rights that collectively covers a huge portion of northern Arizona, including operations like the CO Bar and SP ranches. Babbitt Ranches became known for its Hereford cattle and for a ranching philosophy that emphasizes conservation, community, and a long-view approach to managing the land. One of the unique features of this operation is the Babbitt Ranches Constitution, a document of guiding principles that focuses on land health, wildlife,
cowboy traditions and shared values. Generations of Babbitt family leadership have influenced Arizona's cattle industry and politics. One family member, Bruce Babbitt, went on to become U.S. Secretary of the Interior. Today, Babbitt Ranches balances modern science and old-time ranch customs. The hands still follow the wagon, meaning they move and camp out as they work cattle in remote country, sleeping in bedrolls under the open sky just like cowboys did a century ago. Rangeland management is cooperative and data-driven. The ranch partners with conservation organizations to monitor grassland conditions, protect pronghorn antelope migration corridors, and even host astronomical observatories in its extremely dark remote areas. Cowboys use pickups, radios, and other modern tools, but a lot of work is still done on horseback, often with the help of stock dogs, especially in rough lava flow country. Babbitt Ranches has also diversified, leasing parts of its land for wind energy projects. The herd is primarily grass-fed, focusing on hardy range cattle that can travel long distances for water and forage. By keeping stocking rates moderate and working closely with the land's natural limits, Babbitt Ranches has managed to stay productive even through drought years. It's a ranch that embodies a code of the West ethic, respecting the land, the livestock, and the people, while running thousands of cattle in a way that feels connected to both past and future.
Back in Texas, we arrive at the W.T. Wagoner Ranch, one of the most storied names in American ranching and the largest ranch under one fence in the United States. Spread over more than 525,000 contiguous acres in North Texas, the Wagoner carries a breeding herd of about 10,000 brood cows, along with their calves. By sheer acreage, it's one of the biggest single ranches in the country. The Wagoner story dates back to the mid-1800s. Dan Wagoner started the operation in the 1850s with just 242 longhorn cattle. His son, W.T. Tom Wagoner, aggressively expanded the holdings through the late 19th century, buying land and fencing off a huge range that carried around 60,000 head of cattle by 1900. During the open range days, the Wagoners even leased grazing in the big pasture across the Red River in Indian Territory until the era of open range came to an end. By the early 20th century, the ranch had evolved into a diversified powerhouse, known not only for cattle, but also for its quarter horses and oil. The Wagoner operation developed its own oil field and even a refinery by 1911, adding a major revenue source alongside its livestock. The ranch's Whiteface and Zacahuista camps became famous centers for horse breeding. Over time, the Wagoner Quarter Horse program produced some of the best cow horses in the West and played a big role in shaping the modern American quarter horse. After more than 160 years of family ownership, the Wagoner Ranch was sold in 2016 to billionaire Stan Kroenke for around $725 million. Despite the change in ownership, the ranch has continued to run much as it has for generations. Today, approximately 100 cowboys and ranch hands work across 13 camps to manage the 10,000 brood cows and their calves. The ranch is largely self-sufficient, farming about 26,000 acres of wheat and hay to supply feed and relying on an extensive web of water infrastructure. Thousands of ponds, numerous windmills, pumps, and large reservoirs, including the 16,000-acre lake camp, ensure water reaches cattle scattered over the vast property. Cowboys at the Wagoner use a blend of traditional and modern methods. Horseback riding remains essential on a ranch of this size, and the ranch's horse program has been recognized with an AQHA Best Remuda Award. At the same time, pickups and helicopters are used to locate and move cattle in rough or remote areas. Aviation, in fact, has a long history here. W.T. Wagoner had a plane on the ranch back in the 1930s, making it one of the earliest ranches to use aircraft in everyday operations. Beyond cattle and horses, the ranch still produces oil from over 1,000 wells. Even under new ownership, the core identity of the Wagoner, large herds, strong horses, deep Texas roots, remains intact. It's still a place where, as locals say, the cowboy is king, just on a grand stage. From the Southern Plains, we turn to a multi-state giant, Singleton Ranches.
This isn't one single block of land, but a massive ranching enterprise that stretches over more than 1.1 million acres across New Mexico and California. Each year, Singleton Ranches manages around 10,000 mother cows and raises as many as 40,000 yearlings, making it one of the largest cow-calf and cattle-growing operations in the entire United States. The company's roots go back to 1986, when Dr. Henry Singleton purchased the historic San Cristobal Ranch near Santa Fe, New Mexico. He continued to add ranch properties, including La Cienega and other divisions in New Mexico, as well as cattle land in California. Over time, these acquisitions built up a ranching portfolio that is huge in both scale and influence. Singleton Ranches is renowned not only for its cattle, but also for its quarter-horse program. The ranch maintains an elite horse breeding operation that supplies mounts for its own cowboys and for buyers outside the ranch, pairing top bloodlines with the demands of working cattle in rough country. Although it is big, Singleton Ranches remains a family-run enterprise. After Dr. Singleton's passing, his children continued operating the ranch, blending serious business practices with what they often describe as a cowboy essence. Operating across such wide and rugged landscapes demands efficiency and planning. Singleton cowboys still work cattle the traditional way, horseback on open range, but their work is supported by modern logistics. Herd movements are carefully planned, water and feed are strategically positioned, and transportation systems are set up so cattle can be moved to market in a timely, cost-effective way. Sustainability is a core concern. On the arid lands of New Mexico and California, Singleton Ranches relies on rotational grazing, adjusting stocking rates and managing pastures to prevent overgrazing. The ranch's scale also makes it a leader in data-driven selection for cattle genetics, using performance information to improve traits like fertility, growth, and efficiency in their herds. With thousands of calves and yearlings produced each year, Singleton Ranches plays a major role in supplying beef animals for the broader industry. It stands as a clear example of how a traditional ranch can evolve into a large-scale industrial-level operation while still retaining the look and feel of cowboy country.
Next, we head deep into south-central Florida, to a region many people don't immediately associate with cowboys and cattle, but should. Lykes Bros Ranch operates on about 337,000 acres west of Lake Okeechobee and maintains a herd of around 14,000 cattle. That makes it one of Florida's biggest ranch land holdings and a major cow-calf producer in the eastern United States. The Lykes family got into ranching around the turn of the 20th century. Dr. Howell Lykes left medical career to raise cattle, and over time the family grew a fortune in cattle, citrus, and shipping. At mid-century, Lykes Brothers was one of the largest ranching outfits in the country. Accounts suggest that at one point they controlled about 675,000 acres and some 60,000 head of cattle across Florida. They anchored their operations in the prairies and marshes of Glades and Highlands counties, areas well suited for heat-tolerant breeds. Over the years, Lykes Brothers Inc. grew into a diversified corporation with interests in sugarcane plantations, meatpacking, and even banking, alongside its cattle operations. On the ranch today, Lykes continues to run a large cow-calf operation. Modern range management plays a big role. The ranch land is divided into units for controlled grazing, and forage improvement has been a decades-long project. Improved grasses such as bahia and limpa grass have been planted, and rotational grazing systems are used to keep cattle gaining weight on Florida's sandy soils. Winter forages like ryegrass are added to some pastures so cattle can keep growing year-round. The ranch is widely known for its Beefmaster cattle, a composite breed made from Brahman, Hereford, and Shorthorn that handles heat and humidity extremely well. Ranch staff use extensive data tracking to monitor pasture growth, often tapping satellite imagery, and they maintain detailed herd health records to manage performance. Environmental roles are also important at Lykes. Parts of the ranch have been designated for water storage and wildlife conservation, contributing to efforts to restore the Everglades system and support native species.
On the ground, Florida cracker cowboys still ride herd using horses and swamp buggies to travel across wet prairies and marshy ground.
Our next stop is almost as far from the U.S. mainland as you can get while still staying under the American flag, the Big Island of Hawaii. Parker Ranch, based around the town of Waimea, is one of the oldest and historically largest ranches in the United States. Today, Parker Ranch operates on approximately 130,000 acres of rangeland and typically runs between 9,000 and 15,000 mother cows, depending on conditions. When calves are on the ground, that can mean around 30,000 cattle on the ranch at a given time. Historically, the numbers were even bigger. In the mid-20th century, Parker Ranch maintained 30,000 to 35,000 head of Hereford cattle, making it the second largest ranch by cattle count under the American flag. The ranch's roots go back to 1847, when John Palmer Parker, an American sailor, married into Hawaiian royalty and started helping King Kamehameha I deal with a growing problem: wild cattle. These animals had been introduced as gifts by Captain George Vancouver and allowed to multiply freely, creating both a nuisance and an opportunity. Parker, along with local Hawaiian cowboys, called Paniolos, developed ways to rope, manage, and eventually ranch these cattle. Hawaiian Paniola culture is proud and distinct. They learned roping and horsemanship techniques from Mexican vaqueros in the 1830s, which means cowboy traditions in Hawaii actually predate many mainland cowboy customs. By the 1930s, under manager Alfred Carter, Parker Ranch had expanded to more than 500,000 acres and those tens of thousands of cattle. It became a key supplier of beef to the U.S. military, especially during World War II and afterward. The last family heir, Richard Smart, was both a ranch owner and an entertainer. When he died in 1992, he placed the ranch in trust for several local charities and community institutions. Today, Parker Ranch remains a working cattle ranch adapting to the realities of modern markets. The herd has shifted from the classic white-faced Herefords to Angus cross cattle, aimed at delivering better beef quality. Because Hawaii lacks large feedlots, Parker Ranch ships about 5,000 weaned calves each year to the U.S. mainland for finishing. That process involves trucking, ocean shipping, and rail, a complex logistical chain compared to a traditional cattle drive. On the pastures, Parker Ranch embraces rotational grazing and increasingly regenerative methods suitable for the island's mix of wet and dry zones. Cattle handling is largely done on horseback in rugged mountainous terrain, with off-road vehicles assisting where the land allows. The ranch has diversified into branded local beef through its Paniolo beef label and has ventured into renewable energy, leasing portions of its land for wind power projects. Culturally, Parker Ranch serves as a guardian of Paniolo heritage. The Paniolo Heritage Center and ranch museums preserve artifacts and stories, while rodeos and community events keep cowboy traditions very much alive. Parker Ranch proves that cowboy country can exist in lush, volcanic landscapes surrounded by the Pacific Ocean. Now we head north to Canada, to the rolling grasslands of British Columbia's interior. There we find Douglas Lake Cattle Company, better known as Douglas Lake Ranch, the largest working cattle ranch in Canada and one of the largest in North America by land area and herd. Located roughly 35 miles southeast of Kamloops, Douglas Lake Ranch typically has 18,000 to 20,000 head of cattle on its ranges at peak season. Estimates of total land control, including deeded and leased ground, can exceed 500,000 acres, placing it among the continent's giants. The ranch was founded in 1886 during a period of rapid cattle expansion in Western Canada. By the early 1900s, Douglas Lake Ranch had grown to more than 110,000 acres and was second only to the famous Gang Ranch in size. Over the decades, it emerged as the preeminent ranch in Canada, drawing visits from figures such as the Duke of Edinburgh, who came to hunt and ride on the property. Today, Douglas Lake Ranch is owned by businessman Stan Kroenke, who also owns the W.T. Wagoner Ranch in Texas, linking two huge ranching operations under the same ownership. Beyond cattle, the ranch is famous for its scenic lakes and grasslands, and it allows limited tourism, especially for trophy fishing on private lakes like Douglas Lake itself. Despite the immense scale, the ranch operates with the relatively small crew, around 18 to 20 full-time cowboys. These hands manage the large herd primarily on horseback, supported by careful planning and teamwork.
Each cowboy typically keeps a string of about a dozen horses, rotating them through different jobs and workloads across the season. In summer, cattle graze on native bunchgrass ranges, including extensive areas of crown, public land, under grazing leases. In winter, the animals are moved down to lower ranch-owned pastures. One of the ranch's key advantages is the sheer amount of contiguous grazing land it controls, which allows cattle to graze much of the year and reduces the need for intensive winter feeding. Rangeland management is critical. Stocking rates are carefully monitored to protect fragile native grasses. The ranch also focuses on watershed health, managing riparian zones along creeks and around lakes to control erosion and protect water quality. Tradition still dominates the daily work. Cowboys do most tasks from the saddle, and the overall feel is that of an old-time big outfit. At the same time, Douglas Lake integrates modern veterinary care and occasionally uses ATVs for tasks like fence work or feeding. The combination of large-scale, strong range management, and relatively low-cost operations has earned Douglas Lake Ranch a reputation for producing high-quality cattle efficiently, an example of sustainable ranching at a truly large scale.
Back in South Texas, we arrive at one of the most iconic names in global ranching, King Ranch. With about 825,000 acres under its brand, King Ranch is larger than the state of Rhode Island and stands as one of the biggest ranches in the United States, both in terms of land and cattle. Its herd today numbers around 35,000 head, including the ranch's famous Santa Gertrudis cattle. The ranch's headquarters includes the historic 1915 main house, a symbol of its long-standing role in American ranching history. Founded in 1853 by Captain Richard King, an Irish-descended riverboat captain, King Ranch began with a relatively small Spanish land grant in what was known as the Wild Horse Desert of South Texas. Over the late 19th century, the ranch expanded by acquiring neighboring ranchos, gradually building a vast empire. King and his successors, particularly the Clayburgh family, helped shape American cattle ranching. One of their biggest contributions was the development of the Santa Gertrudis breed in the 1920s. By crossing Brahman cattle with shorthorns, the ranch created a red, heat-tolerant breed that thrived in South Texas's harsh climate. Santa Gertrudis later became the first official beef cattle breed developed in the United States. In the days of long trails, King Ranch ran huge cattle drives northward, and its Running W brand became legendary up and down the trail routes. Another turning point came in the 1930s, when oil was discovered on King Ranch lands, adding a major new income stream that continues today. Modern King Ranch is a diversified agribusiness. Its cattle operation stretches across four main divisions: Santa Gertrudis, Laurelis, Encino, and Norias, spread over multiple counties. The ranch also grows crops such as cotton, grain, sugarcane, and citrus oranges, and participates in various forms of hunting and tourism. To manage forage on semi-arid rangeland, King Ranch uses rotational grazing and aggressive brush control, targeting species like mesquite and huasach that can quickly take over pastures. Cowboys still ride some of the best quarter horses in the business, many from King Ranch's own storied breeding program, but they also rely on pickup trucks and GPS to check on water points, fences, and cattle herds. King Ranch has long been a leader in scientific breeding and continues to invest in genetics research to improve cattle traits like fertility, carcass quality, and heat tolerance. Visitors can tour the ranch's museum and historic buildings, learning why King Ranch is often called the birthplace of American ranching. After nearly 170 years, it remains a living legend, balancing deep heritage with cutting-edge agriculture.
Our second largest herd takes us once again to Florida. Deseret Ranch, located in central Florida, east of Orlando, is often described as the largest single-site cow-calf ranch in the United States. It spans about 295,000 acres of flat woods,
improved pasture and wetlands, and keeps a massive breeding herd of roughly 42,500 to 44,000 cows. Each year, over 40,000 calves are born here, making the operation one of North America's largest cattle producers by head count. Deseret Ranch is owned by the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints and managed through its Ag Reserves arm. The ranch was established in 1950 on cut-over timberland and swampy ground. Over time, 14 separate parcels were assembled and improved, turning what was once low-value land into a major center of cattle production. The name Deseret comes from a term in early Mormon history meaning honeybee, symbolizing industry and cooperation. Appropriately, the ranch's brand is a beehive, signaling the values behind the operation. Over the decades, Deseret invested heavily in improved pasture species suited to Florida's warm, humid climate. It also introduced Brahman-influenced cattle that could handle heat, insects, and humidity while still performing well. The ranch diversified its land use, adding citrus with more than 1,500 acres of orange groves, timber production, sod, and other crops. Today, Deseret is a highly integrated agribusiness model. The heart of the operation is the cow-calf program. Calves are weaned and shipped to Western feedlots for finishing. To manage the huge landscape, cowboys use a mix of horses, ATVs, and occasionally helicopters to locate, gather, and move cattle. Water management is a huge issue in Florida, and Deseret has extensive systems of irrigation and drainage canals to handle heavy rains while protecting pastures and ecosystems. Environmental stewardship is central to the ranch's identity. Large areas of wetlands and wildlife habitat are conserved, and rotational grazing is used to maintain healthy, resilient grasslands. Performance data is collected and analyzed to improve breeding decisions, emphasizing traits like fertility, growth, and environmental fit. With nearly 300,000 acres under management, Deseret Ranch also acts as a green buffer against rapid urban sprawl in the Orlando region, a massive working landscape surrounded by growing cities and suburbs.
At the very top of the list, by a huge margin, is Sucarne's Lucero Ranch in Durango, Mexico. This operation looks very different from the classic image of an open-range ranch. Officially known as Agropark Integradora Sucarne Lucero, it is a gigantic feedlot and processing complex, often cited as the largest feedlot facility in the world. Lucero Ranch is located in Tuahualilo, Durango, on roughly 474 hectares, about 1,170 acres of land. Despite that relatively compact footprint compared to the open ranches we've seen, its scale in terms of cattle is astonishing. The feedlot has the capacity to hold up to 250,000 animals at one time and feeds around 800,000 head per year. As part of the larger Sucarne Group, owned by Jesus Vizcarra's Grupo V's, this site helps the company process about 1.3 million head of cattle annually. Historically, Mexico was home to enormous haciendas, like the Luis Terrazas Ranch in the 19th century, which is said to have run around 1 million cattle at its peak. Agrarian reforms eventually broke up many of those old estates. Lucero Ranch, built in 2015 to 2016 with major investment and government support, represents a modern evolution of large-scale cattle production in Mexico, geared toward export markets and industrial efficiency. One of the conditions tied to that support was that the facility maintained capacity for 250,000 head by 2017, which pushed Sucarne to build a highly sophisticated operation. Lucero includes its own feed mill capable of producing roughly 130 tons of feed per hour, turning grains and other ingredients into balanced rations. The operation even processes manure into organic fertilizer, closing part of the nutrient cycle and adding another revenue stream. Environmental management and biosecurity are major priorities. At this scale,
Disease prevention and waste handling must be tightly controlled, so Lucero uses advanced systems to monitor animal health, manage effluent, and keep operations within strict regulatory standards. Around 60% of the beef produced from Lucero's cattle is destined for export, tying the single site directly into global supply chains. While it doesn't fit the classic romantic image of cowboys on horseback trailing cattle across open plains, Lucero Ranch is a key part of how modern beef reaches consumers, and it stands as the largest cattle feeding operation in North America by head capacity.